Hello, this is Mr. Cashmere, and this lecture video is about main ideas in Hamlet. So when you're looking to find the main idea in a scene, these are some steps that I think will help. The first step is to preview the scene. If you're using the original text, the Folger edition, then you're actually going to have a brief summary of each scene, about a sentence or two before each scene begins. Okay, so that's always good to read. No matter what version you're reading, though, it's good to scan ahead, see who's going to be in it, see how long it is, just get a quick sense of what it is that you're in for. And then, of course, step two is actually the reading itself, right? You want to read your version or your versions. And everybody else has a different plan for this. So one person might do graphic novel, modern, regular, modern, regular. And another person might do modern, regular, regular. And a third person might do regular with glossary, once through the graphic novel, and regular again. So find a way that works for you. And when I say works for you, I mean that by the end of your process, you've understood. When you're done reading your versions, you want to ask yourself, what were the most important things that were said, and what were the most important things that were done? And when we're saying important, we mean things that are moving the plot forward, right? So everybody says something for a reason, and the reason is always that they're trying to get something that they want. And in this case, what we're looking for is what were the most important things, what were the most important things that were said and done that moved the plot forward. So for example, when Hamlet is outside in Act 1, Scene 4, waiting for the ghost, he talks about how Claudius is partying each night. If you're going to summarize the scene, you might include that, but if you're looking for the main idea, the biggest idea, then you'd have to go with the appearance of the ghost that happens at the end of Act 1, Scene 4. So what you want to do to distill your thoughts is you want to fill out your plot map chart. And if I were you, I would do this each weekend before the reading comp quiz, because if you do a good job on this, you're going to nail the reading comp quiz. And that's when you get your 5 main events, and from your 5 main events, you pick out your most important quotes. Honestly, if you're doing this, and you're doing it well, you're going to do really, really well on the reading comp quiz. Because the plot map chart forces you to make sure that you're really pulling out the most important pieces of a scene. So as you read, there are some key relationships I want you to be looking for. The most important ones would probably have to be the 4 relationships that Hamlet has amongst the 4 major characters that are not Hamlet. So Hamlet and his relationship with the ghost, how that builds and changes over time. Hamlet's relationship to Claudius, his uncle and the new king. Hamlet's relationship to Gertrude, his mother, and Hamlet's relationship to Ophelia. There are many, 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 many relationships within the plot of the play, probably dozens of relationships, but these are definitely the 4 that you want to keep a close eye on. These are some themes that you're going to want to be looking for as you read, and if you see, interesting parts of the script that are hitting on some of these themes, then it might be a good idea to note that. So a theme is a big idea, generally a universal idea that anybody can relate to, and everybody might have something to say about, and each play and each Shakespeare play that you would read, and indeed each play in general, is going to play with some different themes. So some of the themes in Shakespeare, in other words, some of the big universal and relatable ideas, would be uncertainty. And the number one source for uncertainty in the play is, of course, Hamlet's uncertainty at whether or not to believe the ghost and follow the ghost's commands. Also, appearance versus reality is going to come up a lot, what things look like versus what they are. So not just the ghost is his appearance real, but also you're going to find some other things that you might say like, oh, there's a difference here between how things appear and how they actually are. One example might be Hamlet's madness. As he descends into madness in the play, there's a big debate about whether he's descending into madness on purpose, whether it's a show that he's putting on, or whether he's actually mad. Is the appearance the reality, or is the appearance different than the reality? Another theme is death. We start the play having heard of death. The death of Fortinbras, the king of Norway, the death of Hamlet, the king of Denmark, and death plagues Hamlet's thoughts throughout the play, and death comes to many of the main characters in this play. And so death and the thinking about death happens a lot throughout the play. One of the first things that the ghost says is, he says, "If I could only tell you what hell was really like, I would tell you a story to make your flesh crawl," and so forth and so on. So it's not just that people are dying, but death is constantly debated and discussed and reflected upon. Actions and their consequences is a big one. There's a lot of things that people do in this play, and there are a lot of things that people think about doing in this play. And the play does a really incredible job of having characters actively weigh the consequences of their actions. The diseased state. So there's a micro and a macro level plot happening in Hamlet. The micro level is what's happening with Hamlet at court with Claudius, and the macro level is what's happening with the state of Denmark on the whole. And so when it is said early in the play, in Act 1, something is rotten in the state of Denmark, we do know that Denmark is rotting from the inside with the relationship between Claudius and Gertrude and the alleged murder. We also know that Denmark is vulnerable from the outside as Prince Fortinbras comes to avenge the death of his father. And so the state of Denmark really is diseased in a number of different ways, and we sort of explore that disease as the play goes on at the macro level. And finally, alienation. Hamlet feels alienated from the rest of the world. He feels like he has the secret that he can't tell people. He feels like he's been betrayed by his own mother, that his father is gone, and he feels something that any one of us can relate to, that we've all felt at different points in our life, which is alienated, right? So we feel alien to what everybody else is doing. He feels detached, he feels distant, he feels like he's not a part of the world around him, and that he can't quite wrap his mind around that world. Finally, some thoughts on Shakespeare's language as we move into Act 2. First of all, keep an eye out for recurring phrases. In other words, phrases that come over and over again, keep coming out throughout the play. For example, in Act 1, Scene 3, Laertes says to Ophelia, talking about Hamlet's love, he says, "For Hamlet and the trifling of his favor, hold it a fashion and a toy in blood, a violet in the youth of primy nature, forward, not permanent, sweet, not lasting, the perfume and suppliance of a minute, no more." Ophelia responds, "No more but so." Laertes responds, "Think it no more." So within line 10 alone, we have the phrase "no more" 3 times. No more but so, think it no more. That's a shared line. And the phrase "no more" comes up again and again throughout the play from Act 1 all the way through Act 5. Keep an eye out for that phrase and for phrases like it. See if you can draw some connections. Secondly, Hamlet's wordplay. One thing that Hamlet loves to do, even in his deepest melancholy, is he likes to play with words, and he does this all the time. His first line in the entire play is when Claudius addresses him as his son, addresses Hamlet as his son. He says, "But now my cousin Hamlet and my son," and Hamlet responds, "A little more than kin and less than kind." Now, this is a little play on word with kin and kind. A little more than kin, meaning you've now made me your son, a little more than just your kin, than your family, but now your son. But less than kind, in other words, I find the way that you've treated me to be kind and unnatural. The king responds, "How is it that the clouds still hang on you?" And Hamlet says, "Not so much, my lord. I am too much in the sun," in quotation marks. Again, a play on son, that he is now Claudius's son, because Claudius is married to Gertrude, but also a play on sun versus clouds. So no, the clouds aren't hanging on me, and as a matter of fact, I'm in the sun. Hamlet loves to do this. He plays with words all the time. He uses his cleverness and his wit as a way of distancing people. And he also uses his cleverness and his wit as a way of expressing himself. So keep an eye out for that. And finally, Hamlet has several major soliloquies throughout the play. In 5 acts, I believe there are 7 major soliloquies, if I'm not mistaken. And a soliloquy, remember, is when a character is alone on stage, and there's nobody else on stage with that character, and they give a lengthy speech. What I want you to do is to imagine that when the soliloquies are given, they are being spoken directly to the audience. So in a movie, the soliloquy might be done as a voiceover inside the person's head, because the soliloquy is basically the expression of thought. It's like a character talking to themselves. But on stage, you don't want to talk to yourself. You don't want to draw yourself inward. You actually want to put it out there and talk to the audience as if they were you, as if they were kind of the mirror. And so keep an eye out for Hamlet's soliloquies. Again, I believe there are 7 major soliloquies in which he's sharing his thoughts with the audience and debating with the audience. So we've looked at how to find main ideas. We've looked at the major relationships, major themes, and some major things to look at in terms of Shakespeare's language. So keep these big ideas in mind as we move forward week by week through this play.